した。
マーケボイ、あの顔を見てるとな、自分はエルフであることも忘れるんだ。人と妖精、そもそも一緒になることさえできないわ。まさか私たちがこんな終わり方をするなんてさ。
翡翠の門傭兵団の団長エラスタが参りました。私の力を見せる時です。ここは私に任せて。みんな行くぞ。矢をつがえ。
どこに遊びに行くの？青空を駆け巡るこの感覚、私大好き。早く早く早く、食らいなさい。やったー、アルガスのために。新しい大陸でも絶好調よ。あら、ここはどこなのかしら。ちょっと私を案内してくれる？
Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I am going to be covering the two new upcoming heroes in Langrisser Mobile, which are Clarett and Alustriel. I will begin with a very quick summary of these two new heroes, and that Clarett is a must-have hero. She is amazing for both PvP and PvE. By comparison, Alustriel is more of an optional hero. She is quite good for PvE content, but for PvP, she's kind of mediocre, to be perfectly honest. So, with that said, let's talk about these heroes in detail now. And first things first, we'll talk about their release date. And referring to the tentative banner schedule, which was created by the Reddit user Boom Boom Gun, you can see that this banner should be released in October 24th to November 6th. That's pretty much less than 2 weeks from now, because today is October 12th, so this banner is coming very, very soon. Now, because these two characters are Langrisser characters, Alustriel is from Langrisser Mobile, whereas Clarett comes from Langrisser 5. So, because they're Langrisser heroes, they will appear in future Destiny Summon banners, or Focus banners, if you prefer the name. So if we take a look at the banners, Clarett does come in a Destiny Summon banner all the way in at the end of December. So December 26th to January 8th is when you get the Focus banner with Clarett. And then as for Alustriel, she appears at the end of January, from January 30th to February 12th. So if you want to pick up these two new heroes later, it's perfectly viable. However, I will say, ideally, you should get Clarett now. Because Clarett is dominant once she hits 6 stars. But before that, she is, I guess, okay. So, if you get her now, you can start farming shards of her right away. Whereas if you get her at the end of December, it's going to take quite some time to farm up shards of her. Right? So, yeah, take it as you will. Alright, so with that covered, let's go into these two new heroes in great detail. And I'm going to actually use the Langrisser for information about them, because it has quite a bit of information. So, let's start with Clarett, who is the far superior hero, in my opinion. Clarett, she is dominant because of her talent. Okay. When attacking and entering battle, damage increases by a certain percentage, 5, 10, 15, 20%, and damage received is reduced by that same percentage, 5, 10, 15, 20%. So this allows her to do more damage when attacking and take decreased damage, increasing her survivability. It's almost, you can almost think of it as being like, let's say Leon activating Chivalry, right? With the damage increase and damage reduction. whenever she attacks. But this is a permanent effect. Whenever she attacks, she gets these buffs. And in addition to that effect, she has a terrifying second effect in her talent. When ending a turn, any remaining unused movement can be saved for the next turn, up to 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. Meaning, if she doesn't move that first turn, her movement practically doubles. Okay? Because if she's infantry, she has 3 movement, she doesn't move. The next turn, she has 6 movement. If she's in her flyer class, Dragon Master, right? And so she has 5 movement, and she doesn't move, she gets 10 movement the next turn, which is absolute insanity. So she can just basically wait a turn, then move 10 tiles to attack. So, in terms of classes, her 2 ending classes are 1, either infantry as a sword maiden, or 2, Dragon Master as a flyer. Which class is better? Generally speaking, people put her into Dragon Master for that mobility. At 6 stars, you could have 10 mobility, right? But because of her classes, Princess, Meteor, and Yeeless Legends, she may occasionally be used as her infantry class, because in she now offers basically Princess and Meteor, well, Princess specifically, an infantry character, which they previously didn't have. So, in terms of soldiers, she gets a wide variety of useful soldier choices. For example, she gets Griffin. She gets the Griffin Knights, right? Which have the increased attack as a flyer. She gets Holy Pegasus, which can have reduced damage taken when she attacks. She gets Masked Maids, which have incredibly high attack value as infantry. So those tends to be her 3 best soldiers, the Griffin Knights, the Masked Maids, and the Holy Pegasus. Which when I generally would suggest either Masked Maids when she's in infantry, and Griffin Knights when she's a flyer. But, you know, Holy Pegasus is an option if you have them upgraded, but you don't have the Griffin Knights upgraded. So, with that covered, I guess let's talk about her skills. Right? Skills are they're quite reasonable. You know, she has, for example, she has Wind Whisper here to do the AoE damage, and apply a random debuff to enemies. She has First Aid. She has Ride the Wind, where before attacking, you increase damage by 5% for each block moved, up to 25% damage increase. So this skill is basically insanity when comboed with her talent, because here she gets 20% damage increase from her talent, and then she can, as long as she moves 5 tiles, she gets another 25% damage increase, and it's a 1-point skill. So you're looking at a 45% damage increase for Clarett. Once again, incredibly terrifying. Other than that, she does have, I guess, her other skill that she very frequently brings is for the 2-point skills. She generally brings this skill, Thunder Flash, where you attack a single enemy doing 1.6 times damage. If the enemy is defeated, reduce skill cooldown by 3. Otherwise, unit can act again and gains the effect Demoralized. Damage dealt minus 50%, lasts 1 turn. So it has a 2 cost and it has a cooldown of 4 with a range of 1. What this basically means is if she can one-shot a target, this skill has a cooldown of 1 turn. If she can't one-shot the target, she gets to act again. And while she has that demoralized effect of 50% less damage, she can still attack again. And keep in mind, even though she has 50% damage reduction, right? If she moves 5 tiles, she can still get plus 25% attack. Her talent, giving 20% damage increase, can kind of, in truth, balance out this damage dealt minus 50%. So, yeah. And once again, acting again means that the skill cooldown of 4 gets reduced to 3. So it's either a cooldown of 1 turn or 3 turns. So it's just an amazing skill, put simply. What this skill allows her to do, basically, is first, she can move 10 tiles to attack, doing 1.6 times damage. and really one-shotting an enemy. If she fails to one-shot an enemy, she gets to attack again. So, and make sure she kills them off. So this skill, for example, allows her to guarantee kill an enemy Landius, because her first attack will probably one-shot him, allowing him to revive, and then her second attack can wipe out Landius. Absolutely insane overall. So, in summary, basically, she is a 10 movement attacker with 1.6 times damage with 45% damage increase and the potential to act again if she doesn't kill a target, making her absolutely top tier for PvP and really, really good even for PvE content. Of course, the drawback is she really needs to be fully built up. You're going to have to get her to 6 stars so that she can get that extreme mobility and extremely stat increase and have high stats in general to be used. Alright, so that pretty much sums up Clarett. So in terms of skills, it's pretty obvious, as I said. You're always going to bring Thunder Flash, you're always going to be bringing Ride the Wind, and for your final 2-point skill, that's where it is kind of up to you. You can bring, skills command, so she has a 20% skill increase. You can choose to bring Wind Whisper, so she can toss out an AoE sometimes. Maybe after she uses her Thunder Flash and plans to attack again. And yeah, I mean, just a ridiculous hero overall. And if you're going to use her as an infantry class, she can bring Roar to attack, let's say, the Thunder Dragon. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else that needs to be said. She's just an incredibly powerful character that pretty much everyone should build up. Alright, so that is Clarett, a must-have hero. And after Clarett, we'll talk, in fact, I strongly recommend trying to draw for her in the upcoming banner, because that way you can start building her up right now and have her at 6 stars as soon as possible, as opposed to having to wait a month and a half for till the end of December, really, right, to start building her up, because that will put you far behind. So, other than Clarett, we'll now talk about Alustriel. And in comparison to Clarett, Alustriel is pretty much a standard character. You can say she is a bit mediocre in a lot of ways, because first of all, her factions are Legion of Glory, Strategist, and Origins. While they are pretty useful factions, I mean, most of these factions already have good archer characters, and that is what Alustriel is. She is either a bow knight, similar to a bow knight, Luna's bow knight class. She is a wolf commander with 5 mobility, and she can do ranged attacks or melee attacks, or she is a sniper with only 3 mobility. So the reason why she can do both melee and ranged attacks is because of one of her skills. She has this skill from Wolf Knight, Nature's Protection. It costs 1 point. When you are on a forest, mountain, or plains tile, troops will not be affected by melee damage reduction. And when unit is in melee battles, all damage is reduced by 20%. So she does do a bit less damage in the melee, but 80% melee damage is still much better than, let's say, the 50% or whatever that most archers have. So she is able to do melee fight. She's able to do melee fights reasonably well. Her talent is for every block move, damage and crit increase by 1, 2, 3, or 4%, which is very similar to Leon, right? Increased damage for every tile moved, and it maxes out at 5, 10, 15, or 20% stat increase, meaning moving 5 tiles gives you the maximum damage increase. And when moving through defensive terrain, you gain 1, 2, 3, or 4 chances to avoid mobility reduction. That part I'm actually not sure what it does, to be fair, but the first part is quite obvious. Alright. So, with that said, overall though, you can say she's a very highly mobile ranged attacker who can do decent damage in the melee due to nature's protection. In terms of skills that she has, the main skills that she brings would be probably Jadeite Magic Arrow, which has a cost of 2, cooldown of 3, and a range of 2. It attacks a single target for 1.3 times damage and is extra effective against flyers. But before battle, it dispels up to 3 debuffs and gain 10% damage increase for each debuff remove. And after combat, applies all dispelled debuffs on to the targets. So, what this means is, effectively, you want to be debuffed by the enemy beforehand, before you attack with this skill. You know, whether it's the enemy Bozo debuffing you or whatever, by having debuffs on you, when you attack, you lose those debuffs, gain increased damage, and then apply those debuffs onto the enemy. It's just a great skill overall. Other than that, she's definitely, generally speaking, you'll probably bring the 1-point skill, Nature's Protection, unless you have an Extreme Magic Bow on her, then that may change. And then finally, your final 2-point skill is kind of up to you. It could be, for example, Neutralizing Fire, right? Where you attack a single target doing 1.25 times damage, and if the unit is on defensive terrain, you can do fixed damage to them before battle. You can bring Roundabout to allow her to attack and retreat, right? With increased damage. So it, generally speaking, depending on your equipment, you may change things up. If you have an Extreme Magic Bow for her, you'll definitely remove Nature's Protection and give her Roundabout. If you don't have the Extreme Magic Bow, you may choose to bring Nature's Protection rather than Roundabout. And then her two-point skills are definitely Jadeite Magic Arrow and Neutralizing Fire. You know, there is, interestingly enough, the option to bring Onrush to allow her to do melee attacks for 1.5 times damage, you know, while gaining some defense and magic defense for the battle. So that is another 2-point skill that she can bring. But it has to be noted that despite having all these kind of skills, Alustriel has no mobility increasing skill at all. So she is basically just purely a 7 range character, right? 5 mobility as a wolf commander, and then 2 range. Or potentially 3 range if you bring Uller's bow on her, right? So that pretty much overall sums her up, right? She's a ranged archer with decent mobility and a wide variety of skills. She can bring catapults for 3 range. She can bring Uller's bow to increase her range to 4. You know, she can attack in the melee. Just a wide variety of uses. The drawback to her is because she is a damage dealer. In order to use her, she would have to be 6 stars, and she's not powerful enough, in my opinion, to be raised to 6 stars overall. So that's my overall conclusion of Alustriel. A fun character with a decent skill set for PvE content, but in PvP, her lack of mobility is a killer, so I generally don't recommend building her as a result. Alright, so that is my conclusion of these 2 new heroes. You know, Clarett's absolutely godlike, a must-build character, whereas Alustriel is more, you know, if you like her, build her up. At the end, I think at the end of the day, Alustriel's main draw is how she looks. She is honestly wearing, you know, a dark elf in very skimpy clothing, and she gets a lot of skins as a result. For example, I think she has a skin from Echoes of Light that is a lot like, where is it? Here it is, right? It's a lot like the, what is it? Studio Ghibli series, you know? And then she also has a teacher skin from Macho Lotto. So there you go. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found this information useful. And on that note, Nitro out.